Gregor, it is the king of the classics on the horizon, the Tour of Flanders.
Yes, Michael, the Ronde van Vlaanderen, as they call it in Dutch. And it is one of those races where every Belgian wants to win. It is one of the monuments. It's the second of 5 monuments. And keep in mind, no one knows yet if we're going to have that French monument the week after the queen of the classics, Paris-Roubaix. So the guys are going to be going all out with guns blazing and ready to take the glory. And everybody's talking about the big 3, Michael. And Michael, if you get a little bit of smoke in the picture here, I just want to let you know off camera, this is the problems with shooting on site. Here in Ghent, Belgium, there's a bus that caught fire. So we have a little bit of smoke kind of drifting in, creating a bit of drama as we head into Flanders coming up this Sunday. It's going to be a big one, Michael. And besides, we have, of course, Wout Van Aert, we have Mathieu Van Der Poel, Julian Alaphilippe, those 3 riders that made the move last year, but we have many other riders that are going to try to contest for glory on Sunday.
Yeah, Gregor, before we do get into the favorites and underdogs at Tour of Flanders, because there's so everybody who you want to see at Tour of Flanders is going to be there, with the exception of Philippe Gilbert. We'll get into that. But let's just talk a little bit about what the Tour of Flanders is for our viewers who may not be as familiar with Belgian cycling as others. So the Tour of Flanders, a monument. It is a massive race. What is it? The men are doing 255 kilometers, something like that. The women have 155 kilometers. And what the Tour of Flanders is just endless cobbled climbs. Steep, relatively short, really hard climbs, one after another, ending with this 20-kilometer out finale of the Oude Quermont and the Paterberg. And the Tour of Flanders, in its current modern inception, has this relatively flat, boring looking run into the finish from the top of the Paterberg. It's just flat, smooth, straight, wide open, not technical, stark contrast to what we've seen throughout the entire day. But as the riders come over the Paterberg with 13 kilometers to go, what doesn't necessarily translate on screen is just how cracked, how tired they are. I cannot think of too many races in the world of cycling that makes riders as tired, as depleted as they are at the end of the Tour of Flanders. And that's what makes this finish just so unpredictable, so gripping, so amazing to watch.
Yeah, and we're talking Tour of Flanders. It's one of those 5 monuments, and it's here in Flanders, the Dutch-speaking area of Belgium, and they never really go very far. It's a bowl of spaghetti, essentially. They're going all around in the same area, covering many of these famous climbs. This year they have 19 of these small climbs here in Belgium, and a lot of them are over cobbled roads.
I cannot just stress enough how big the Tour of Flanders is. I think that it's a race that just the scale of it, the fatigue that these riders feel, it is just bound to create drama year after year. Going back the last couple years, it's this, like I said, this final 20-kilometer fight is where the race really comes to a fever pitch. We saw Mitch Docker fly off into barbed wire as the peloton fights for position into the Oude Quermont. That was in 2018. Just a couple kilometers later, Peter Sagan and Greg Van Avermaet got tangled up along the barriers at the top of the Oude Quermont with the fans, lost the race there. The next year, going into the Oude Quermont, Mathieu Van Der Poel had a dramatic crash over the bars. It is just such a chaotic, incredible, one-of-a-kind race. I cannot wait to watch it, Gregor. Let's get into who is... Oh, and you know, I almost forgot
last year, Julian Alaphilippe, because that was the winning trio I referred to before. They made it. World champion Julian Alaphilippe, and what happens? He runs right into the back of I think it was a TV camera motorbike, taken out of the race. And so then we just had the power duel, the Dutch-speaking power duel of Dutch champion Mathieu Van Der Poel and the Belgian Wout Van Aert coming into the final. That's cycling. You just never know what will happen. In the Ronde van Vlaanderen, the Tour of Flanders, we get a lot of those incidents because there's so much fatigue when you're racing a course like this with so many cobbled climbs and the distance that the riders are going to cover this Sunday, Michael.
Yeah, so you ask why you should wake up incredibly early on Sunday morning if you're in the Western Hemisphere. and why a bike race should possibly take 7 hours, it is because it makes those last 2 hours just so unpredictable, so exciting, and it's this straight run-in into the finish where it all kind of comes down. Like I said, straight, boring, flat road, but everybody's so tired. Groups are strewn out across the road over the Paterberg, and it creates this kind of time trial where, you know, riders 2s, 3s, 10s are all kind of spread out, and they have to work together while being incredibly tired if they're going to have a shot at winning. And it's then that you were just shouting at your TV saying, work together. You know, in 2019, Alberto Bettiol, he won because the riders behind him couldn't get organized. You know, if the race was 4 hours long, those riders would have just rotated, scooped them up. But, you know, when you put them at hour 6.5 and there's one rider up the road, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's the Tour of Flanders in a nutshell. It's just so big. It's so hard. You have no idea what's going to happen until the very finish. So Alberto Bettiol, one of the many defending champions who is going to be on the start list, and a lot of Belgians who sure as heck would like to try to win the race for their first time. One person I'm thinking about is Tiesj Benoot. Tiesj Benoot actually finished 5th his very first year at the Tour of Flanders as a young rider out of the U23s. Maybe he was still under 23 at the moment. He has not quite recreated that result yet, but he has been top 10 multiple times. Tiesj Benoot is one of those dark horses who I think I'm going to be looking at. Gregor, tell me who some of the headliners are going to be at the Tour of Flanders for the men.
Well, as we mentioned before, last year's winner, Van Der Poel, we got Van Aert, who was second last year, and of course a rider who's always tried to win this race. You know, I talked to Wout Van Aert earlier this year. He said, well, I got time on my side to win Flanders, and I reminded him of Greg Van Avermaet, who's always been so close, the Olympic champion from Rio, and he's going to be back this year with AG2R. Trying to win. Everybody wants Golden Greg to win, but he perhaps doesn't look on that top form. We got Sepp Van Mark for Israel Startup Nation, Peter Sagan, another returning champion, along with his teammate Daniel Oss. We have John Degenkolb as well. Interesting is that Philippe Gilbert, a past winner, remember Michael when he won, I think it was a 50-kilometer solo move, and not only was it solo, he was solo in the Belgian champions jersey. He's setting out this race due to, he said, mental fatigue, so he decided to pull himself out of the running for the race. But the team will also have Tim Wellens, Team Ineos, a team that should be strong in this race, but you know, they had a small team the other day in Gent-Wevelgem, but we did see them ride so well in Milano San Remo. We saw the team pulling all day for what was nothing in the end, but in that winning move they had Kwiatkowski, they had Tom Pidcock in his first time in that race, and Tom Pidcock will be on the line Sunday as well, and that will of course be his first time to race the Ronde van Vlaanderen, the Tour of Flanders, and he knows these roads well. He's raced around here many of times doing cyclocross races, so that'll be an interesting team to watch out for. The team also has Luke Rowe as well, and another old winner, another past winner that you've talked about, Nicky Terpstra, who's lining up with Edvald Bosenhagen and Team Direct Energy, Michael.
Gregor, of course you can't forget the Trek Segafredo duo of Mads Pedersen and Jesper Stuyven. Those two riders just work so well together, and either of them are capable of winning this race in their own right. So it's cool to see them team up and kind of figure out who is going to have the legs and who's going to have the opportunity on the day. Then looking at the women's side of things, Gregor, one rider who I am going to be looking at with keen interest is Annemiek Van Vleuten. Dutch rival Anne van der Breggen, though, we know that she is riding really well after the performance that she put out at Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. Omloop Het Nieuwsblad is kind of known as the miniature Tour of Flanders. So I think that Van der Breggen is going to have the legs to do something similar. Her SD Works team was a little bit off last weekend at Gent-Wevelgem, so I think that the SD Works program is going to be going into Tour of Flanders with a bit of a fire underneath them as well to perform. Other riders who I'm looking at, Cicely Uttrup-Ludwig, she has done pretty darn well at Tour of Flanders in the past. She was third in 2019, the year Marta Bastianelli won. She just didn't have it in the sprint, but if she can pry herself away over these climbs, she could be a kind of a surprise winner for some. And then who else? The Americans are looking really good. I have to once again shout out this TIBCO duo of Kristen Faulkner and Lauren Stevens. I'm going to keep harping on Kristen Faulkner because she keeps impressing me. This is a rider. She's only been racing professionally for 2 years, hasn't been riding a bicycle for much longer than that. She was an investment venture capitalist in Silicon Valley 2 years ago, and now she is finishing top 10 in Belgian Classics. That to me is just absolutely incredible. So let's see what her and Lauren Stevens can do at the Tour of Flanders this year. And of course, American champion Ruth Winder. She is going to have a hugely impressive Trek Segafredo program alongside of her. But I would love to see the American champions jersey at the front of the Tour of Flanders making something happen in the finish.